Good evening, televiewers. Welcome to Prime on my Media Prime TV. And tonight on the program, we're going to be looking at youth in politics, the new face of African leadership. We're going to be looking at what is happening in Burkina Faso once again, in Senegal, and also in Chad, and how the youth are trying to change the game as far as African leadership is concerned. We're going to be discussing on this very important topic, touching on the lives of Africans with panelists who are with me in the house. We have Fa Elvis Tayon, who is the Deputy Communications Secretary for the Cameroon Renaissance Movement. Good evening, Fa. We're glad to have you.
Good evening, Mr. Kum. It's my pleasure making present here today. After a while, I think that we want to say that all is well, with special greetings to Professor Maurice Kamto and the entire CRM members who are leaving no stone unturned to inject a new vibrant spirit into the new dispensation of the new republic, that's the third republic, which will go a long way to dynamize and inject new blood, that is young people. Greetings to the people of Kumba, the city mayor Greg Mewano, and the host of others, the mayor of Kumba One Council. And I think that with the host of other mayors, we were together at the World Press Freedom Day out there at the Kumba City Council. Greetings to, of course, the president of Kamasej Meme chapter. You know, I'm also a member of the Kamasej Meme chapter as the vice financial secretary over there. So we had quite a very busy schedule over the week out there. But then special greetings to Mr. John Mewano and the wife, and I'll tell them happy birthday. We also commemorated birthdays on his part there, and I think it was quite a good stay for him to have enabled us have a good stay out there. So John Mewano and the wife, special greetings to you and happy birthday as usual. But then all those who are specialized in promoting kangarooism in this country, we will stand after them, because a new vibrant spirit to be brought in place by youths for the new republic must be felt in this country, come rain, come sun.
Okay, Apostle Malcolm Nganje is also part of tonight's edition of the program. He's coming all the way from Limbe, chief town of Faku. He's coming from Boya. Good evening, glad to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to be here again today. It's an honor to be here. I think the topic on ground today is a very important one, a very touching one. I believe the youths have discovered that it is high time they take over the affairs, the leadership of their nations, and that is how it has to be. Because if not so, what we are going to inherit from our fathers will be debts. What we are going to inherit from our fathers will be corruption and all the like. So it is high time the youth take over, and it is a very, very important move. Thank you.
Mr. Lucas Anji just joined us, also coming all the way from the Southwest region. Good evening, Mr. Anji, and courage to the work that some of you people in the civil society have been doing out there.
Good evening, Mr. Kume. It's a pleasure being here tonight.
We also are going to be discussing with Mr. Stanley Fongot from the United States of America. He was on Prime last week. We are glad to have you once again. Mr. Stanley, looks like you have muted your, I don't know whether you're using a phone or a computer. It is mute. We can't get your audio, but we're glad you are able to get us. Eli, can you get that fixed? But let's look at youth in politics, the new face of African leadership. When you look at what is sweeping across Africa, is it telling of a wind that is blowing far Elvis Tayon?
Yes, I think it's a wind that is blowing, we agree. It is a wind that is coming to change the dynamics of politics in Africa, we agree. But the worry is that sometimes we pray here and the prayers are answered next door. What we clamor for to get for example, in Cameroon, is what is answered in the other African countries next door. You see, the bitter truth with evolution of time and age range is the fact that each time has its peculiarity, and each age range has its peculiarity that match with a particular time. Now, this one is a short issue for those who have done sociology and anthropology. Now, you realize that the dynamics of someone probably who was born in 1960 suited now in 2025 cannot be the same dynamics with someone who was born probably 1980 or 1990 fitted at the same time. It means that the paradigm shift will always be visible, because such a person will be easy. It will be easier for him who is closer to the time to adapt to the changing time than he who was further or who is further from the changing times to adapt to it. And that's the more reason why you realize that our parents, for example, you see the app phones we have here. I'll tell you that my son, who is in class 2, manipulates the phone faster than myself. I mean, that's class 2 primary school. He knows my PIN code. He knows how to access the YouTube channel to watch the cartoons and all the like. But now realize that sometimes for myself, when I come back, I'll be asking, why did he touch this? Why did he touch that? Now imagine by the time he's getting to the age where I am now, he might have gone far in the aspect of technology, which I will still be battling. Now it's just like, if you look at it, those persons who are 80 years, 70 years, it is true most of them have Android phones. But if you tell them, do they know all the functions of those Android phones? They will tell them no. Most of them have Android phones. Is maybe to use WhatsApp, maybe to use the call itself, and text messages. It's all right. But they will know that there are other applications in the phone, because once you start taking them to those applications, you are already boring them, because that's not what they are looking at it as it is. Now, you now realize that these things are aspects that are very fundamental. With the changes itself, the wind is blowing. We see it visible. And even if the wind started in a different manner, that is to say, some of the youths took the bull by the horn and seized the power themselves, and then enforced themselves, and people saw value in them, which people never knew. But in as much as we clamor on the other side that it could be done peacefully, but at the same time, the thing is that, are they delivering goods or not? Now, take a look, for instance. You tweeted Ibrahim Traore the other day, and it was quite touching, because we never knew that each African continent has its natural environment that can enable it to thrive. It's just like in Dubai. Dubai has been a desert. Dubai before the mid 80s was nowhere to be found as far as development in the world is concerned. But today it's a world touristic trade center. And so how do they do it? It means that they realize that we have a desert, but what do we do to transform this desert into an area habitable, into an area that can produce vegetation, into an area that can produce even water, like we have small rivers that they tap from the seas and bring there. So at the end of it, we now realize that everything has to do with the mentality of the people at that point in time. Now, while the wind of change is blowing in the other African countries that we see it visible, no one could know that Sonko, for example, in Senegal, a whole tax inspector who was fired for taking stands against the government, could begin putting changes in Senegal as such. If you go to next door Gabon, as we are saying, Olingi is their breeze. Yeah, it is true. He took it in a way that we would not want to take that kind of step. But look at it critically. That is somebody who would tell even officials of the electricity supply, national electricity supply company, that if you are willing to get us electricity, you resign from your job and we replace you immediately. If you look at it, somebody will tell you that you cannot be in an aspect. He looks at the budget line, and Brice will tell you that what is the essence of paying generals millions of francs CFA when the country is down in need of money and probably the country is living in utter poverty, and it streamlines it and brings it that the highest general is not above 600,000 francs CFA. So these are small innovations. But you can only get this when you have youth, because the truth that youth have something to offer. But the question is, in the milieu where they find themselves, have they been given that opportunity? Once they are not given that opportunity, we are talking about Finland here. The minister of 28 years, Finland, Denmark, 28 years, and sometimes the ministers, you see a young lady who is a minister is riding bicycle to go to the job site.
Let me just remind our televiewers of some young people who are into politics in Africa. We're talking about Emma Theophilus in Namibia, aged at a point in 23 years.
Correct.
Role, Deputy Minister of Information and Communication Technology. We have Bobby Wine in Uganda.
Yes.
The guy
who suffered last time.
Who wanted to be president.
Yeah.
We have Danny Prince in Kenya. He is in his late 20s. He's a youth advocate and political commentator. And we have a lot of we have Raisa Kele in Egypt, who is also very young. We have Joanna Mamombe in Zimbabwe, who is 25 years old, member of parliament in Harare West. We have Mohamed Sidi Sherif in Sierra Leone, who is just 24 years and is an MP. We have ministers, quite very young ministers across the continent.
You just gave that, and I'm laughing because we had a world summit of ministers of youth affairs. And I don't know how it happens that our situation was a little bit different. That you discover that someone is a minister of youth, but he's not a youth. And then other countries will present minister of youth to you, and you really see them youth. So you cannot expect their plight to be the same. So it's quite interesting. But I think that something needs to be done because, like what you just mentioned there, we only have to learn from that example, and it takes the willpower of those youths. That's why I say that in the context like in Cameroon, where youth are used in stealing ballot boxes, carry ballot boxes run up and down, and then used in preserving and singing songs to people who have retired, I think they have to change the dynamics listening to us, because this is the high time they take the bull by the horn and know that their destiny lies in their own hands and not in the hands of those who have made life and are only waiting for their last days. It's a call for concern.
Okay. We're talking about young people who are making a change, giving a new face to African leadership when you look at what is happening in some West African nations. But in Chad, we have a young president, and we'll talk about from the father. If he did not have that courage and mindset, he would even not accept to be a president. Is the issue also with being daring? The guys in Senegal could dare, they believed in themselves, and they are where they are today.
I think so. It is a matter of mindset. It's a matter of mindset. Because there is just no way that a father of 90 will tell me that he's more smarter than his son that is 35 or 40. There's just no way. But in Cameroon, the fathers make the youths to understand that they are the ones that have all the wisdom. They are the ones that know how to do everything. So the youths have to listen to them and follow them. And ironically, it is happening like that in our nation. But thank God for some youths that are rising up to change the narrative, to say, no, it cannot be like this. We are more wiser than you. We can do better than you. And it has already proven itself in nearby Burkina Faso that youths can do better than the older generation. And I think that this program of today is not just to talk about these things, but also to encourage the youths to rise up, especially the youths in this nation. Rise up wherever you are. You can do better. With all the education, with all the qualification, with all the wisdom and understanding, and with the time, it is our time. It is the time for youths to rise, because they are the ones that will make the change. Everywhere in Africa, in every nation where you see is an older man that is there, the nation is crying. But in the nations where we see youths more in the leadership, the nation is fine. That is also a prophecy in itself, to even show our fathers that it is time to hand over, give up the leadership of the nation to the youth, so that they can do better. It is the cry and the wish of every father.
But you are talking about handing over. Is power ever given? These guys are in power because they dared, they took the steps, and they followed the process that were required for them to get to where they are. Who is going to hand power to you?
Normally, the fathers were supposed to train their children to take over.
Yeah, but why
they were supposed to train the youths. Every indication is showing that they have not trained the youth, because you will even see a minister, the assistant minister is not a youth, the third in command is not a youth. So it means that they are not training the youths to take over from them. And so it is high time the youths have to now see how they can take over. And I believe taking over is not that we are taking over through arms, no, but how to enter into politics like what we are seeing in other countries and take over. Sometimes when your father is refusing to give you the command button, you have to take it. either by wisdom or by force. In some countries, we have seen it by force, they have taken it. But we are calling for the youth to rise so that it can be given to us by wisdom.
Okay, it can be given to you people by wisdom. Mr. Stanley, can you come in here? Do you see the young generation changing the dynamics in Africa as far as political leadership is concerned?
I do wonder. I wonder. Can you hear me? Am I good now?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, good. So, I think the time has come for there to be legitimate change, especially when it comes to governance on the continent of Africa. We have seen tremendous progress in places like Sahel, Burkina Faso, Niger, Mali. They has become the template of what change looks like on the continent of Africa. Unfortunately, those are military rule, but it looks more like that's what the people are interested in, especially in that part. We have to do whatever it takes to encourage young people to become part of, governance, and people who basically have to craft their own future into their own hands. If you look at the population of young people on the African continent, 70% of those are actually below 30 in sub-Saharan Africa, and in the case of Cameroon, it's actually 35% of young people on the continent of Africa are actually below 35 or below 30 for that matter. So we really must be able to encourage young people to basically put in their voice so that we all collectively can be able to build the kind of future we are looking for.
Thinking the process of democracy, trying to tell us something that suits Africa. That is this something good for you? When you read through what is happening in Mali, where they say, please, political parties, there is need for reorganization, a rethinking of the process. Same for what is happening in Burkina Faso, and we do not know what will happen in other nations.
Well, the reality is that if you look at what is happening in Burkina Faso, it's not just an anomaly. It's something that I think can actually do happen across the continent of Africa. Is not being taken. The only fear I have is that we really must be able to talk about us having some form of democracy where there is equal representation across the board. And the reason for that is because just because somebody comes into power today with the barrel of a gun, that does not guarantee that there will be some kind of safety and equity going forward. We really must be able to push for some form of democracy. No more. That's just the way it is. I think that those guys, they're doing whatever they have to do now for the salvation of their own country. They have put us into their own hands. If you look at a country like Niger, it was at the bottom of all economic indexes. But right now, they are actually the 7th fastest growing economy in the world. And think the fastest growing economy on the continent of Africa after the fall of Bazoum. So we really must be able to take a step back and look at it have a panoramic view as to what is actually happening in Niger, in Mali and Burkina Faso, and start asking ourselves, what is the path forward? What are we doing? But I'm still a big time believer that the right form of democracy is absolutely needed on the continent of Africa, not what we have in scoring version.
Yeah, I want your net appreciation of the concept of democracy as it obtains in Africa today. Why is it not working comparatively to some of these North African countries that are considered somehow autocratic?
Series of issues. First of all, we are struggling when it comes to where we are geographically on the continent of Africa, which is very important. Very few people get to understand exactly the impact of geography alone on us on the continent of Africa. Secondly, we are dealing with a colonial, what I call leftover of democracy, which was basically a copy of something from the Western world, which basically the fabrics of structures on the continent of Africa was not ready for that. On the issues of land, on the issues of law, we really didn't have that kind of structure on the continent of Africa to start talking about democracy. So whatever we have right now as democracy in its current version is in antithesis to who we are as the people. And I think that we have to start thinking about having some kind of a hybrid system where we look deeply into our own cultural values and the structures we have in terms of our own cultures, tribal chief, and try to pick out a little bit more from those sectors and then have a hybrid system between that and whatever it is that we come up with as our own version of this concern. I think that for over 50 years, what we have looked at has not worked, and there is every single indication on every single study shows it has not worked. We have to do something different, otherwise, I don't see any pathway forward.
Okay, thank you. We are coming back to you. Where is the problem? Demographic advantage. We see that over 60% of Africans, the Africa's population is under 25. Why are they not? Why are they underrepresented to the extent that we almost are complaining across the continent of total dominance by persons who supposedly should be resting?
Well, it's all about the decision of the individual. Permit me go a bit into the 60s and 50s for us to see the spirit that was there when you talk about African nationalism. If you look at the African nationalists in the 50s and 60s, they were basically young people. The Patrice Lumumba, the Thomas Sankara, the Ernest Wanji. You may want to start naming some people in the days of the former Southern Cameroon. You have to see people like the Endeli, the Foncha, the Muna, and the rest. These were all youths. Like you talked about being daring. These were people who were daring. They did not assume that someone was going to hand over to them power. We shouldn't forget that these were people who took power from the white men, the white people who were more repressive than some of the blacks we now have today in Africa, who are indeed on a mission not to cause the continent grow. The white men were relatively more repressive than the people we now have, yet we had persons like this who were quite daring. Now when you look at the 25, the under 25, or the close to 70% of Africans who are below 30 and they are not active in politics, I think it's basically because they have decided to surrender their future to the octogenarians, and this is where we have a problem. The case of Cameroon, so to say, is as simple as it is. I don't think it is because the old people per se are the problem. Now, when you observe the political landscape of Cameroon, there is one thing you're going to notice. You will notice a group of young people who are the ones who are alleged to be the transporters of ballot boxes for people who are about 80, 75, 70 and above to manage them. When you follow the political landscape, this is the category of people you would find. So what is happening in Africa is basically the decision of the young people. But what is most important is that if we keep on holding on to the young people whom we say they don't want to indeed bring the change close to themselves, and we think that the old people also should not, why not allow these young people manage the country. There is one thing we must remember, that the same young people who are refusing to take power, the old people, after a while, they are going to hand over to those who are interested. And in most cases, it is their family members or their children. And you realize that when it's handed over to their family members and their children, these same people, they take it up to the 70s and 80s, and they will look for another young person within their family to hand it over to. So if you look at African countries that are indeed fighting this government of old people, you will notice that the youth in this country are quite daring. And the difference in Africa is, if you look at the different region, it is obvious that if you go to the north of Africa, the people, they have accepted that they are kings, and the system of government they have in that area, they are comfortable with it. When you move to the sub-Saharan Africa, if you start coming down to West Africa, you will realize that the group of people within that particular area have a high level of awareness, but they are indeed working and they want to get there. But when you come to where we find ourselves, so to say, if you come to the CEMAC part of Africa or French Equatorial Africa, basically this is where we have difficulties in terms of young people who want to take power. Now, I may not resonate with the person out there who talks about democracy and defines it the way he wants it, but I want to say that if you take the case of Mali, if you observe, severally Malians have come out in large number and they told the world that they are with the military junta, whom they believe that they are the ideal people to manage the country. It is the same thing with the guy in Burkina Faso. What does this reflect? It therefore means that if you talk about democracy, which is summarily the voice of people who are interested and people who are indeed more than those who are not for that, you realize that the case of Burkina Faso, one may want to go by democracy in terms of number to say that in Burkina Faso, looking at the result on the 30th of April 2025, the person in Burkina Faso who is considered to be someone who took over militarily, yet he has been proven that in the definition of democracy by number, based on those who are willing to accept you, he is okay where they find him. But if you come down to Cameroon, the youths are indeed very much aware that they have problems. But the issue here is the youth in Cameroon are still to, allow that system that fits them to the system where they want to write their names. The youth in Cameroon are unlike the youth we had in the 1950s and the 1960s of Cameroon. So what is most important is that the young people in Cameroon, whom we think is a major problem within the CEMAC zone, we have to look at how to decode that mindset that it is not about eating today, it is not about forgetting about your name today, but you have to think about how you also will be remembered. I'll take the case of Thomas Sankara. It took us several years to accept that Thomas Sankara did something. It was only within this year.
When every anniversary is an opportunity to reward loyalty, Orange is here to celebrate its 25th anniversary with all Cameroonians. Many prizes to win for the occasion, tourism trips, latest smartphones, and lots of other surprises. Quick, subscribe to Orange Bonus on #111*1# or via the Maxit app. Gather a max of points and try to win great prizes. Orange is here.
What they saw as a system that was quite oppressive, and they wanted to build a country. So I don't think that the old people are the problem as concerning the French Equatorial Africa, which is a major problem in terms of Africa. Because if you look at Southern Africa, if you look at most of those countries, you realize that most of the young people there, they have the awareness and they are working. Why? Down here, we have the awareness and our arms are still folded, waiting for some old people to tell us that, okay, today you are going to take power. But power is not indeed given. So we have to dare work for it and ensure that in working for it, we must not be the ones to eat. Because normally, if you look at nationalists never believed that they are the people to indeed enjoy what they have fought for. The Kwame Nkrumahs, the Thomas Sankara, the Ernest Wanji, they are not the ones who actually are enjoying that which they fought for when we talk about African nationalism.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Our youth are lazy, lack ambition. They don't even follow national events. Spend their time in foreign entertainment medias. They have not to go register and vote. Youth must get involved. Our youth like quick rise to money and posts. Their mindset should change. Power should earn, never be given. Show some signs of resilience and responsibility. Our youth are passive and surrendered. Johan is writing from Pena Mboko. Youths have energy and they are also innovative. What are the power dynamics that you think they can orchestrate or initiate in Africa if they were given the chance?
Yes, you said if they were given the chance, which it might be difficult for them to get a chance.
Yeah, but
so
why are they not rising up to?
So the main thing is that it boils down to what we said at the beginning, that is a matter of mindset. Because I'll tell you that first, youths themselves constitute over 65% of the population. Now imagine if these youths were all active in politics, they would dictate the pace. They would dictate the pace. I understand for French-speaking African countries, they have a colonial entanglement. That we must agree. And the colonial entanglement is the fact that most of the leaders, the choices are made before the elections come up.
But Senegal is a former French colony.
Yeah.
We see what is happening.
Exceptions will always be like that. That's why I said that they took it radical. You understand?
In Mali. But you
so now,
entanglement. What
so
stops
now
you from
with the
liberating yourself?
With the issue here, we realize that, as I said, it's a matter of mentality. And the mentality has to do with someone taking a lead. Now, if you look at it, for example, let's come to Cameroon. The issues has been always in a way that, like somebody just wrote there, they are lazy. And I agree with that, because if you want to have easy-going life, for example, you will not arrive at. If the guys in Senegal, the guys in Niger, the guys in Burkina Faso and Mali were to take things the way they are, they would have followed them out, because these guys were well-paid military officers, for example. Even the tax inspector, the guys in Senegal were well-paid. To be a tax inspector in a country, you should be very okay, because you have what they call advantages, what they call advantageous service. But to leave it and to say we want to change, it means that it all has to do with the matter of, first, the willpower, secondly, the education, because this is what we're doing already. We are now telling Africans that you can do it. Now you can prepare yourself. Now imagine, yesterday I was so worried. I moved to the streets. I was in Kumba. From Kumba I also came to Boya and also others. I discovered that football match is going on, and surprisingly, youths have all gathered in front of large screens. Surprisingly, youths have. This is a debate. You will not see many youths there. You will see sometimes those our parents who are responsible are the ones watching the debate now. Now the youths are there. They are watching football match, and I decided to do some findings. I only realized that surprisingly, women too were also involved. All the streets in Monaco, the women are also involved in the match watching. And what was even disturbing Mr. Leo, when I realized that they were not just watching the match because they enjoyed it, they were watching the match because they have carried on with betting for those games. Now, imagine how much money goes in for those bettings. For youths. We call this witchcraft in broad daylight. You get the way they are shouting, the whole town is shaking. This team has done that, Barca has done this, Manchester has done this. And you think that's for the love of the football? No. I realized that over 75% of them are into betting. And imagine gambling for youths. It means this kind of youth who are into gambling can be a potential danger to the nation. Youths already been lured into gambling. It is a terrible thing. And I spoke to one girl. I said, but why do you watch this thing? She said, no, it's because she said in pidgin, I don't cut ticket. I do not understand the meaning of cut ticket. When I attend, and somebody told me, no, cut ticket means she has played a ticket for that particular football match. And that's why you see she was shouting and sitting and thinking that her own team should win. Now, this is the kind of a youth, for example, we will not want to find. How can youth come out of this? It simply means that from the different caucus of where they are, at the school milieu, we should have vibrant youths that take the lead in educating their peers. Because sometimes when you come to talk, they'll say, no, you be old man. What are you talking? Maybe your own time has expired. But it takes another lead. That's why if I look at Fabrice Lena, he's a youth. That's one of the guys I admire so much. Because Fabrice Lena on Nawiwi, I think there's something Nawiwi, I see him move from place to place, talking to youth. I met some of his youth the other day at the polling station at Elekam Buddha at Moliko. They were all youth who were there wearing their t-shirts and insisting on youth to come. Now, come to the University of Boya, for example. We have more than 25,000 students there. Now, imagine if these students themselves were getting interested into the programs you are running now, and they were getting interested into the developments happening in Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali. Automatically, there will be a wind of change that will push them into going to register. I tell you, it's a matter of numbers. If these youths are coming in their numbers, there is no way you can meet a group of elderly persons who are few, and then the youths are 10 times that number, and the youths are not involved in that particular political running. It's impossible. But when the youths themselves they sit, look at what was so shameful the other day. That I go and I see what is transpiring in Boya. That at Bongo Square, the same youths themselves who came in the name of raising money to assist the head of state pay a caution were equally receiving 10,000 francs and all the like. And then I asked myself, this youth who came to receive 10,000 francs to swell the grandstand, to tell you that youth came out massively in support of 92 years president, or in support of an old expired kangaroo system, and at the end 5 million is raised. Before they leave, they use themselves, who pretentiously came that they were coming to raise money, and the end were receiving monies each by 10 by 10, 10 by 10, for us from survey school, from public works and all the like. And I asked myself, these are the youth whose consciences have been caged, and they are now reasoning the other way around. Because the normal youth will be asking yourself, but even if you are giving me 10,000, what is the money for? Why do you think I should sit and come and join you to fulfill your agenda that the head of state has support, full support from the youth in the entire Southwest region? You can now see the way our own politics is playing a different thing. That's what I said at the beginning here. We give prayers here, and the prayers are answered elsewhere. Man of God, the earlier people get to work, the better. Because it looks like our prayers are not being answered. Because 1,000 youth or 10,000 youth in the far north for the head of state, and the youth themselves are jobless.
We're talking about a new phase of
African politics.
Yes.
Something needs to be done.
We have we've accused the West over the years of deciding on how our business is structured out there, diplomatic relations that are not favorable to us, and host of others. Do you think the young guys, if they were to take over, are going to change the direction or the dynamics there when it comes to international relations?
Yes, I think so. I believe so. But I would like to bring out some points before I go deeply into this your question.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think we should understand that times are different.
Mm-hmm.
The times when, for example, our president took over power is not the same time now. By that time, I believe the colonial masters were leaving Africa and they had to hand over power. And those that were there, they are still there till today. Those that were available, they took over the power and they are still there till today. Now, if we look at our democracy in Africa, it is not a democracy, it is a combination of the colonial rule, the indirect system, and the direct system. We have the chiefs, they still maintain the chiefs. We have the mayors, that's kind of a direct rule. We have the SDOs and the DOs, that's an indirect rule. So they have blended the two, and they are using it on their people. Now, we are now in a generation where this system has been going on for a time. That's number one. Number two, there is a lot of distraction on every side. That is distracting the youth a lot. Number three, I don't believe that even though we are calling on the youth, that the youth are not trying their best. They are trying to come up. But how do they enter into the system and take over? That is the question. I believe all of us sitting here, we are youth. And we are thinking, we are looking for a way to enter into the system and take over. One thing I believe is that for you to put out darkness, sometimes you must enter into the darkness to be able to bring out light. So the youth must now bring the strategy of entering into the government. And then, when you now sit there, you can now change the narratives. But if we are always saying the youth have to take over, and we don't show them how to take over, the only thing they will be thinking is arms. That's what they will be thinking. So the youth can actually do more than what the older generation have been doing. And to say if they take over, can they change the narratives? Yes, they can. In terms of technology, in terms of the knowledge of the time, who has it? The youth. They have the knowledge, they have the ability, the manpower. They know how to go in and out of the system. So they can actually bring that change. But to say that it will be handed over to them, okay, those that are there, it was handed to them. But now they don't want to hand it over. The only thing is to enter into their system, and then when you enter into their system, when you are seated there, you can now show your real colors. This is the real me. Like those that are now heading, like Burkina Faso president, when he entered the army, he did not enter with this mindset. As times were going on and he had the opportunity to take over, now he's showing his real self. But when he was in military, he was obeying the hierarchy. So I believe that the youth can enter into the system, and then when you are seated, you now change the system. There are youths that are in power, but what they fail to do is that they still listen to the fathers. That's another problem. We have youths in some positions, but they are not acting in those positions as youths. They are still obedient to the fathers that maybe put them there and stuff like that. So all of these things, these are factors that are affecting the youth. And I believe that if these things are well arranged, the youth can do a lot.
Yeah, what is it that makes you believe that if the youths were to take over, that things are definitely going to change from what we have observed in Africa for the past 30, 40 years?
Looking at the latest wind of change is an evidence. The latest wind of change that is going all over Africa now is an evidence. And I believe that this wind is not only going to blow where it is blowing and coming to Cameroon and other African countries. Looking at the development that somebody like the president of Burkina Faso has done in just few months, it shows that if the youths take over power, then Africa is going to be the number one world power, the most developed and everything. Because youths understand the time. Youths understand the dynamics. They know what to do. They know how to arrange things. For example, if you look at the father of, let's say, 70 or 80 that wants to build a house, and you compare a young man that wants to build that same house, you enter the two houses, you see big difference. The youth will build the house with beauty and elegance, because that is the spirit of the youth. So if they take over, they are going to bring that same spirit into the government to do things differently.
Okay, Robert Tamo is watching us from Yaoundé. Sergio Ramos is watching us from Limbe. Issa Sok is watching from Bambili. Gerard Pulaje is watching us from Yaoundé. Julius Jewel is watching us from Chang, West Region. Okay, Betatoko is watching us from Yaoundé. Kumsela is watching from Womenchum Division. Elangwe Brandon is okay. Elangwe Brandon. The link is on my page. Gerard, okay. Yumsi is watching us from Bamenda Upstation. Paul Melbourne is from Gusi Southwest Region, Kupe Manenguba. Okay, Lum Lizette is watching from Bamenda. Bung Martin is watching us from Jamena in Chad. Fidelis Ching is watching us from Kwabang, that's Yaoundé. Ngondo Ignatius from Bamenda. Kang Protus from Bonaberi. Chance Kibe Bright from Kumba as usual. Romeo Perez is watching us from BMRC on top my zinc. Okay, Che Joyce Babe is watching us from somewhere online. Sam Rich is watching us from Gaoundere. Rima Shalom is watching from Yaoundé. Bernu Eve is watching from Yaoundé Emana. Now, Mr. Stanley, should we still be talking about where we are because of the West, or imperialist, or it is time for us to rediscover ourselves, accept what we know, and change the course?
I think I'm a little bit more, scared that the change we so much try to talk about having on the continent of Africa will really not come. It doesn't matter who we change. It doesn't matter who basically leads, especially countries like Cameroon. It doesn't matter. The reality is that for over 40 years, 50 years, we have been in the same, and that stagnation. We're a little bit too demented to think that it has been all about colonial rule. And this has been some of the conversations with some of my friends who are Pan-Africans, who are quickly to say that the only reason why Africa has not developed is because we have had colonial rule, and so the post-colonial era, and which is basically ruled by soft power, has been the reasons why we are where we are. But the reality is that we are not the only ones who were colonized. If you look at countries like Burma, you look at countries like India, you look at countries like Vietnam, Malaysia, you look at the Philippines. These were all countries, that went through colonial rule as well. But they are not like us. And there's something that we really need to understand. If we did not just spend a little bit more time studying a little bit more time understanding how things work, a little bit more time looking at research. And if all our ambition and talk is only about change, I am a little bit worried. Change from what to what, right? And the reason is because there are legitimate issues that has to come as a result of the vantage point in which we are on the continent of Africa, for example. Let me give you this. If you look at the continent of Africa, we have one navigable river that basically cut across the continent. If you look at the Niger River, it is a river that basically does nothing. It's quite small. It's a little bit more shallow. Only a few months in the year that we have heavy rainfalls, that can we be able to transport goods from the Delta in Nigeria all the way to places like Timbuktu, all right? Which is extremely very important if you look at global development, which has occurred in places like Europe, in places like Asia, which has all happened along rivers. There is no river on the continent of Africa. The only place you might be thinking about a river which is basically good enough will be the Nile, and the miracle of the Nile will be two very important cities on the continent of Africa. You're looking at places like Alexandria in Egypt and Cairo. Without which there is no other river on the continent of Africa, okay, that is not a cascading, series of waterfalls and rapids. And those are some of the issues that we have on the continent. And we're talking about change. We're talking about how things get better. But nobody has gone deep enough to be able to understand where we are, why we are the way we are, and what we can do. On the continent of Africa, all of our major cities are all coastal cities. All right? They're all cities along the coast. Johannesburg, Kuala, Accra. You're looking at places like Abidjan. All of those things, Tunis, all of them. And if you look at North Africa, they don't have the same issues we have so far as sub-Saharan Africa is concerned. Along the coast of Africa for thousands of years, we were marginalized from trade because it wasn't a good trading route. You can hardly be able to bring any ship right to the seaport of Douala without uploading with the smaller vessels and then bring it on shore. It's not just Douala, it's the problem along the coast of sub-Saharan Africa. That's what we are facing. So the notion that we're talking about change, and it is more about talking about people, like we can talk about Thomas Sankara all we want, we can talk about Kwame Nkrumah all we want. The reality is that is not what will bring us to where we have to compete with the rest of the world. To change leadership without understanding direction. I'm not in support of the leadership. Absolutely not. I am tired of having folks talk about change. And then, but there is no legitimate idea as to where we're changing from what to what. Tell me where we are and this is where we're going. This is where we are and this is what we need to do. Give me concrete stuff. All right, tell me, how much money does it cost to basically construct a road? How many chips of sand? How many concrete? What are we doing? How much money? What quality of steel? How much money does it cost? Those are the kind of things that we want to hear. And unfortunately, we have young people who basically are not interested in anything, and they spend most of the time, like my co-panelists was talking about, in sports, and they are not interested in music. If you ask most Africans or most Cameroonians, the most famous people they know, there's nobody they're mentioning in politics, neither they mention them in academia. They will mention, people into music and people who are into sports. And the reason is because we are demanding like that. So there has to be a way in which we do things a little bit differently than just sitting on the sidelines and talking about change and how difficult things are. But I don't know where we go from here.
You're raising some points here where most of the cities that are developed in Africa and across the globe are located along the river banks. But what is also the miracle that is happening in the Middle East? We have some countries in the Middle East that are also doing very well. What is different? What are they doing differently?
In the countries in the Middle East that are doing very well, and you have those major cities, name one of those cities that is not beside the coast, or that does not have a direct access to the coast, almost, or does not have a major river that leaves the coast and comes to that particular city. Almost all of humanity's development has occurred as a result of maritime trade, period.
Yeah, but Cameroon, let's take the case of Cameroon. Let's say the case of Cameroon, Mr. Stanley. We have Douala, that is along the banks of the Vuri River, and then opens up to the ocean. We have Limbe, we have Kribi, we have towns, and other African nations. We have Gabon, that is open to the sea. We have Angola, we have Senegal, and all through Nigeria. Why are they not as developed as the other nations that are also open to the sea in other continents?
Well, if you look at the development, on the continent of Africa, just like I said, they are all coastal. Most of our major cities are all coastal cities. Most of our major developments on the continent are coastal developments. The problem we also have on the continent is that most of all of these cities along the coast by themselves, you can't have any ship harboring. You take a city like Douala. If you ship a container to Douala, the main vessel that brings the vessel has to anchor somewhere offshore, and then the smaller vessel will go to the bigger vessel, collect the containers, and then bring them onshore. And the reason is because our geography on the western part, on the sub-Saharan Africa, does not allow for major ships to actually anchor. The miracle that we have, for example, in places like Cameroon would be the seaport we have in Kribi, which is basically one of the strange miracles that you have. Apart from that, it is very dangerous for ships to come on, right up to the shore, especially across sub-Saharan Africa. The coastline does not permit that. You just need to look at the research. That's one of the major reasons why development in this part of the world is incredibly stagnated.
Yeah, but seemingly you are not also opening an eye to the levels of corruption that we see in Gabon, that we see in Nigeria, in Cameroon, and other states. In Gabon, we have a new president, and within the time that he's been there, we've seen what he has done. But we've had a president who has led that nation for over 10 years. Without actually doing what this new guy has done. We have seen what is happening in Burkina Faso and other nations. Don't you think that is also where the bone of contention is, our problem?
Corruption is a major problem everywhere. As a matter of fact, let me say something. Look at the corruption that is happening on the African continent. I tamed that level of corruption. I name it the uneducated version of corruption in Africa. If you come to the United States of America or any major European countries, the corruption in the West, especially in places like America, is educated. You have not seen corruption in except you show up in the US. We are incredibly corrupt out here as well. The thing I'm saying is this. I mean, if you basically take away corruption, which is basically something that we have to take in, one of my mandates, by the way, I'm actually running now, one of my mandates to be able to end corruption in Cameroon will be not to defeat corruption, will be talk about curbing corruption, will be to put an end to corruption in ways that corruption will basically cease to exist. There are ways in which we can do that. I am not saying that there are no multifactorial issues when it comes to what we are suffering on the continent of Africa, which has brought about stagnation. What I'm saying is this: the constant rehearsing of the same set of issues that we have faced in the past that has contributed to our stagnation. I'm saying you need to look a little bit more. There has to be a high resolution look as to what is happening, not a shallow look. You cannot have a superficial look as to what the issues on the continent is. Then in that way, I don't know how you can rapidly get us from where we are to where we need to go. And what we need must be an accelerated growth out of this level of pain that every Cameroonian is suffering into a place where prosperity is spread across. For that to happen, we have to look at this issue in high resolution. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, Mr. G, let's look at the capacity for young leadership to accelerate development, which has been stagnated for so many years, for decades, since we got independence. Do we see in young African leadership a capacity to take these strides and run with them faster than what obtains today, because of the vigor and energy that they have?
Yes, of course. Technological know-how. I think Apostle Malcolm talked about that. Malcolm, yes, I think he talked about that.
Use that illustration of
Yes.
an old man who may want to construct the house and
Yes,
new guy, yeah.
yes. So it is obvious. The problem in Africa is this, especially in Cameroon. We have several things that distract the youth, which is a very subtle way by the octogenarians put in place to dissuade them from the reality, and they keep painting the picture that they cannot do it. How do you explain a developing country that can easily give the license for someone to operate a gambling house? You accept gambling companies other than institutions that can stabilize the minds of the people. Whether we like it or not, the West, they believe in something. The second problem which they put on the table always to give us the impression that young people cannot drive the economy is that institutions that can help moralize the young people, on the contrary, what is presently happening is that they are trying to limit them. And the essence is that they don't want the youth to have that foresight. And so when you look at things like this, you may want to think that the youths are lazy. Now, a major problem in Africa is that most of the parties that are in place were founded by some of these people who are 80 plus. So they determine. What is quite unfortunate in the case of Cameroon, which I said tonight I will be using Cameroon as a case study, is that in Cameroon, for example, most parties, it is at the level of the party hierarchy that a candidate who have to become a councillor within a municipality is decided. It is not decided by the wish of the people. That is, the parties themselves do not want to give the young people that opportunity. Let me put it this way. Let's say, for example, you come to, let me take the case of Womb. You come to Womb, for example.
Pay your taxes and custom fees at Express Exchange. The solution is close to you. Enter an Express Exchange agency, head to the cash register with your tax notice, and make your payment of tax and custom fees with ease. Receive a confirmation receipt. So cool, Mula. Yes, Mula. From now on, I pay my taxes and custom fees at Express Exchange. It's simple. Express Exchange, partner of the Guild and the Directorate General of Taxation. Express Exchange, #1 in quality service in Cameroon.
A party headquarters in Yaoundé, I think it suffices for me to say that Yaoundé will now decide who becomes the councillor in Womb. Whereas it was supposed to be the people from below who should say, this is a person we have chosen. Now, when they pick up someone who does not have the touch and he fails, they will attribute it to that person's failure. And they will tell you that this is the reason why they decided to pick up a particular person. We have youths in politics in Cameroon. But what we are looking at is the level of youth involved in decision making at the level of this said politics. I'll take the incumbent party, the present ruling party in Cameroon. If you look at most of its mayor, they are young people. But when you move up to those who make certain decisions within that same party, you will not find these young people. So they decide for these young people, and that is why the young people themselves, they would barely get to, their maximum, because they are often shaped by hierarchy and party decision. So we put this under youth. They don't have faith in the democratic process. And that is why you have most of the youths, they have the apathy. They have political apathy. If you succeed to beat out political apathy, they will develop voter apathy. They will tell you that, okay, I will register. But they will tell you that after registering, they will not vote because they don't believe in the process. So what is most important is that we should allow the youth to determine who should be their person to represent them. So if you give it to the young people, they have the efficiency. But presently in Cameroon, what we have is that the government has brought in a lot of places that distract the youth. I want to be frank, void of what they consider to be people who operate without document. How do you explain in a country that we prefer opening snack bars, shisha houses, places where they gamble over churches under the pretext of these churches do not have document? But the activity of some of these aforementioned, I am not saying that leisure is not good. No. What I'm saying is that to tell you, that young person, that it is a design system to dissuade you. You know, when you pick up a piece of bone and you throw it to the dogs, they are going to fight over that bone while you are eating the meat. And while they are fighting over the bone, you are eating the meat. They have the impression that they will break that bone and they will finish the bone. But at the end of the day, they'll go nowhere with the bone. So this is what is happening in Cameroon. The octogenarians have succeeded to throw a piece of bone to the youth, and they are feasting on the meat. And the youth are there deceiving themselves that they cannot do it. And this is why you find young people. Now, if they are given the opportunity, they will do it. One, we must admit the fact that no matter what, we must first of all make the environment conducive for that category of people to drive that change. If you stifle it, if you put repressive laws, if you put laws that will prevent the youth, no matter what you do. I am a proponent of the 2014 law on terrorism as a repressive mechanism for the young people to break their bounds. It is as simple as this. For example, let us face the fact. No matter what happens, you will not find a 70-year-old person, 80-year-old person, 90-year-old person on the streets to revindicate if something goes wrong. But you will find people below 18 and to an extent 15 and 40 and 45. They will mostly be on the street to actually revindicate, which means the law basically did not target the octogenarians. The law is targeting the young people. They don't want to have their voices out there. So it's a subtle way. So all I can tell the young people is that, notwithstanding, don't give up. Let me end with this. If you go to Senegal, Sonko and the current president, that is the prime minister and the president, they decided to get a party for themselves. They did not go through the conventional parties to have themselves elected. It is obvious in Cameroon. I'm sorry. If you take over 369 parties and more, because more will be registered before October. If you put together these parties and look at what is actually happening, 98% of these parties do not have the position the youth want, do not have the opportunities for the youth. And that is why you find most of the youth backing out. So what am I saying? I want to appeal on the youth that it is time to rather put up a party which is youth-centered. So you could use that particular party to carry out your activity. Otherwise, let me be factual. There will never be a day the CBDM party, the MROC, and the rest, they'll give an opportunity for anyone who is 35 below to be a presidential candidate. They will never do that. If you want to believe what I have said, take me 20 years on within these same parties. You will never have anyone 35 years downward. But you will have people who will be 60 upward that will be nominated or chosen as candidate. The worst is, if you look at the level of the parliament, they still decide who to become a parliamentarian, and they'll tell you that in their party they have youth who are parliamentarians. But do you think that these said youth are going to operate within the whims and caprices of the majority? No. They will operate within what we call party rules. Like the kangaroo man said, we saw a large number, we cannot refuse, it was large, in Boya. They assembled as the name of the Southwest Youth. But what was the undertone? the person who is struggling to have himself positioned within his party was able to purchase the conscience and the time of those you saw. And if at the end of the day you assemble people to say that they contributed 5 million and each of them left, the crowd I saw was close to 1,000, and they left with 10,000 francs as gift. Now, if I were the person they were contributing this money for, I would tell them that they are being hypocritical and they don't like me, because if I put together the amount of money given to those people and you tell me that you contributed only 5 million, then it's a scam. So the youth should go and register themselves. If there is need, let us have 4 to 5 maximum parties that are led by young people. And within the constitution of that said party, it should be made known that no one is going to contest for the post of president who is above the age 45. And you will see how the youth will turn out massively. But if you have parties that you have people who are above 45, and they are there every now and then giving you the impression that they have youth who are members of parliament, they have youth who are, councillors. Activities of these said councillors are still guided from Yaoundé. And it is not guided by youth from Yaoundé, it is guided by the octogenarians. So youth can lead this country. They can make good diplomatic relationship that will cause growth. But what is hindering them is the octogenarians in place.
Talking about the new face of African leadership, especially with respect to the West, would something definitely change at the level of our continental instance, like the African Union? They have been existing for so many years, but we see their interventions and actions and other financial institutions. Would things turn around if youth were to take over leadership positions in Africa?
Yes, things would definitely turn around for the simple reason that if the youth themselves, as I said, it's a matter of numbers. Just like what Mr. Lucas, G. Lucas is talking about, as I said, it's a matter of numbers. And sometimes we might get the youth instead confused. If we tell them, go and start putting youth-oriented this and that, at the nick of time when we have October ahead of us, I think it's logically that would be a very dangerous move from the advice we're getting from Lucas. It means you want because first, politics is money. Let me be honest with you. You understand that graduate parties are telling you that they want to raise billions. All right. Senegal, Sonko has been a tax inspector for some time, though young, with his colleague and other like. They might have had that little support from the little monies they could manage themselves and all the way. But now, if we get to the polemics where we are saying that those who are in the conventional parties can never be, I think we are not being optimistic. And those are some of the rhetorics that can even squash the ideas we're putting up here. Because if youths get into a party, say CPDM in their numbers, and the number constitutes, that's the active number, for example, in the CPDM, constitute 10 times above the number of the old persons, they must get to bow at a particular point in time. Now,
are nominated from the party decision and the hierarchy.
No, I'm still coming.
So it will still be impossible.
I'm still coming. Now, when you get that kind of number, the next thing is that in the aspects of Congress or meetings, whatever the case might be, you can easily make a synergy and write a petition from section this. There's this subsection here, subsection here come together, and they are advocating that no, they need to be included in the central committee. Those things are possible once we organize themselves. But when we start looking at negative, it is impossible. I don't buy the idea of impossibility as far as these things are concerned. What do I mean by that? If we have the whole caucus formed together, we have 10 times of those youths than the few of those elderly persons. They can put in place, and you know, when they put in place a mechanism, it gets to a point whereby the older persons know that if we don't admit as per their petition that have been coordinated from all around the different levels of the party to where we are, it means they can easily, if they go away, will be in problems, or they can easily outsmart us, it will be a problem. Those are things that leaders themselves think. If you see, we tell people that register massively, that is the mechanism I'm talking about. When we say people should register massively, what does it mean? It means that if 12 million persons register and 10 million vote against, 2 million vote for, there must be a rethink. Even if you are not presiding judge reading that particular result, you'll be thinking, because you imagine if these 10 million have to revolt, we would be ready to contain them. But when we talk about people registering, only 4 million something will register, At the end, 2 million something will come and will come and vote. The number is insignificant. If you spread that 2 million something across 25,000 police stations, it's easier for them to decide and to do and undo. That's why I say that for partisan politics, sometimes you can only be in the shoot before you understand that. If you look, what is the organigram of the parties? Some parties tell you it's transitional. Some parties, I've gone through a handful of them. We'll talk about transitional period of 3 years before they hand it over. If within that transitional period, the youth are very, very active, it's but normal. In the active part of the youth, who will obviously be forcing themselves into ministerial positions, into parliamentary positions, their presence in numbers, their presence in a quantum, can easily influence them to equally take the lead and become a helm of the party after the transitional period. All things are possible for those that put in place the right mechanism. Now, coming back to the issues of international, whether the youth can influence. You look at it. If youths so far use the same mechanism I'm talking here, and they climb to a particular position, it's obvious that they can influence the African Union. Take, for example, if Senegal, Burkina Faso, Mali, Chad, they begin by saying that we are stepping out of African Union because what they are doing is not meeting the aspiration of youth. It's obvious they can do what we call political lobbying, and in international relations, they can easily lure other countries, talk with them at backstage, and they begin to back out. Once African Union realizes that within a period of time, 5 countries have left us, within a period of time, 6 countries have joined, within a period of time, 8 others have joined, they will be forced to review their status quo, which will go a long way to give room for youths to come in. I take the case of ECOWAS. Because Burkina Faso left ECOWAS, that started weakening ECOWAS already. Mali is leaving. Niger equally left. You now discover that ECOWAS now realize that things are becoming a different phase. Now, instead of ECOWAS imposing on Mali and the rest, they had not to go for dialogue. Now, Burkina Faso has left now. Because ECOWAS has not been very friendly to them, they don't want to use their ports. Their seaports like Ivory Coast and all like that. They are moving to Morocco. Moving to Morocco means they will further weaken ECOWAS. And before you know it, ECOWAS will get to a point where they will come now to beg for them to get their point of view and then insert into the ECOWAS. Use the same system for African Union. You will crumble African Union in the twinkle of an eye because they will have no option. Either they crumble because members are leaving, because members are the ones who contribute for the survival of African Union. If the members leave, it means their own quota, financial quota for the maintenance of African Union drops each time they leave. And if you get to that point where they are handicapped financially, they will have no choice than say, okay, can we get now a youth? Can you nominate a youth now to come and take over at the African Union? Once the youth comes in, he now puts in place the mechanism of youth influence across Africa, and that will affect the diplomatic service of the African continent, and then force Africa to start reasoning youth inclined. This will go a long way to start getting new blood injected in the African Union. And the next thing we'll be asking, why is it that we have 5 members, permanent members of the UN Security Council, and Africa is not among? Now, these are the things that can be injected by youth if they use this mechanism and move over to the African Union. Before you know, you say, no, if you don't do this, we are backing out of the United Nations. And again, all member states, including African countries, who are members of the United Nations, contribute annual dues for the maintenance and for the financing and running of the United Nations. If they too want to drop, it will get to a point whereby the United Nations will discover, hey, we need to do something. Before they will tell, okay, give us 2 or 3 members in Africa who can now become permanent members of the Security Council, because decision making in the world is manned at the UN Security Council. That is the pivot. Once you're not a member there, it becomes difficult for you to have things that will work in your favor. These things can be manned by youth. These are youth ideology that they put in place. Before you know it, all things are possible, but you must start from somewhere. If you cannot start as people started in Senegal by forming their own parties, go to where you are, whether it's ruling party or which party, get youth massively enrolled in that particular party. Before you know it, their numbers and influence will influence the older people in the existing parties, and they'll give a listening ear to you people. Before you know it, youth will climb to the top. It's a sure fact if this mechanism is taken to as a point of advice. Thank you.
Yes, but are we also where we are because of the policies which have been in place? That is not putting a quota like they did for women, that for every list of positions to be appointed, at least the youth should constitute 50%. If you are constituting a list for a political position, the youth should be. That is a government that project 20, 25, 30 years.
Yes, that is also a very serious problem why youth are not into the system. It's a very serious problem, and that problem comes from the educational system that we have. And I want to believe that the educational system that we have is one that is well structured to condition the youth not to be ambitious, not to look at leadership at the top there as something that they can aim for. Because when you look at most of the people that are governing this nation, they are PhD holders, and they did not attain that PhD in Cameroon. They studied outside, and then they came back, and now they are leading the nation. And all those that are going through the educational system in Cameroon, they have been conditioned to remain at a particular level. They'll even tell you that you are not to qualify, because they understand the educational system. If the educational system in Cameroon can be revised and improved on, then the youths are going to become more involved. And this older generation, they understand this. You know that one of the ways to keep the youths under is to give them an education that will not empower them. So if that can change, many things are going to change.
Okay, the system of the policies and our system of education can be changed. Mr. Stanley, are we not also getting as much involvement as desired by the youth because of the mindset? Politics and administration has been sold to African youths as a sphere where dirty games are done, where there is a lot of voodoo, witchcraft practice. So many persons are scared from engaging. How do we change this mindset?
By the way, may I say this before I start answering the question about the change of mindset, that I agree with my co-panelists which was talking about the issues we have so far as the United or the African Union is concerned. I am of the opinion that we need to shut down the African Union on the continent of Africa because it's no longer serving its purpose. It used to be called OAU. That too came down. I think it's about time to shut it down and then regulate power to the rich, ECOWAS, the East African Community Bloc, SADC. We need to be able to push power to those groups, rewrite the constitution for ECOWAS, for AU, and then find ways in which we can be able to weave out every fiber of corruption that is within the system to come out with something that is a little bit meaningful. I think that we have to do that. That is the most useless organization that is occupying space, waste of time, waste of money on the continent of Africa. There is nothing they have done in its existence. I think that is nothing else but a sham. That being said, when you talk about having a mindset, we need to be able to encourage young people to understand that they have to take the future into their own hands. The reality is this. We have to fully understand, especially for young people, that they have to craft their future. No one is going to build their future for them. They have to be able to enhance their future by themselves. They say this verse in this ancient text, the scriptures, will say, as a man thinketh, so he is. There is this ability for you to be able to harness your own future by your ability to think. What I find a little bit disturbing is that most of us, especially in places like Cameroon, have lost that unique ability of imagination. We have lost that capacity to think. That whenever you try to be able to think out of the status quo, out of the box to which you have been placed by those around you, you are considered to be somebody who is either doing too much or trying to prove something or not trying to do as much as you can. The reality is, each and every one of us has been given a mandate to do one thing: push the conversation forward 1 centimeter, push the country forward 1 centimeter, push the dialogue forward 1 centimeter. Whatever we can do to be able to push this nation in the right direction, even if it's just an inch, that is what we're looking for collectively. No one person owns the country. It's not somebody's, father's house. It's each and every one of us. And I think that once people begin to understand this, that what they're watching on television, okay, we're watching Dubai, watching the streets of Los Angeles, watching the streets of New York, of London, all that they're watching on television could actually exist in their own backyard, or it could actually be Douala, could be Limbe, could be Bamenda, could be Bafusam, could be the far north. Once we get that concept that what we're looking at, admiring outside of the country can actually does exist within the country, then that which we're looking for will be inevitable. And the reality is this: I think that if we do not energize young people to be hungry enough to believe that what's possible is possible, then it will be difficult to get them to see, to see this utopia that we are building, this magnificent city, that we are creating, even though it's still at the levels of our minds. Believe me, it's possible. And I'm a big time believer that the change the country needs is possible. And maybe I need to be able to say this now. It is from that premise that I'm actually officially putting my best foot forward, to run in this next coming election. I think that time has come for us to go to put our money where our mouths are.
You are making a big announcement. Can you come back to that?
Yes, I'm saying I'm running. There is nothing that is on my way now. So officially, I have got the race.
You're running for the 2025 presidential elections as an independent candidate, or
yes,
you're running under a political party?
Independent candidate. God forbid I'm joining myself with any party. I'm running as an independent candidate.
Okay. The information is gone through. So on this platform tonight, Mr. Stanley Fungold has declared his intentions to run as an independent candidate for the October presidential elections to take place this year, 2025, in Cameroon. This is also what we're talking about, young people daring and dreaming to change things. But Mr. Stanley, let me just ask you one question. We're talking about youth engaging in politics, the new face of African leadership. But majority of young people in Cameroon today, they dream of going to Canada, going to the United States where you are, and going to Europe, maybe Japan and a host of others. Nobody actually sees the change that we desire as being our responsibility.
What the reality is that is because we have refused to have this unique capacity of building. I'm always in Cameroon. I run businesses in Benaberry, in Douala. I'm working with a couple of projects around the country. We have refused this unique ability to believe that what is possible in Cameroon. I have friends who we used to live together in Los Angeles, and now they are multimillionaires living in Nigeria. They are doing very well in their own rights back home. I think that that should be the story that we present so far as what's possible in Cameroon, because if not, a lot of young people are looking for the opportunities, what we call greener pastures, that is happening outside of the country, and it is a drain to the country, and it is not helping the country. That is why I am not just talking about running, but I am leading the charge to be able to help relocate a lot of successful Cameroonians outside of Cameroon with the structures that we are putting in place so that they can be able to come back, and we all should be part of the building process of being able to bring the country to the level in which we want the country to be in. I don't think for 1 second that we were born in Cameroon by mistake. I think it was God's divine providence that we were born in Cameroon so that we can, all of us, be able to ignite the change that we're looking for. And if that was going to be the case, it would be a disservice for me to live all of my life, all right, living large, living good somewhere else, and not being able to show up in the battlegrounds, okay, which is called Cameroon, and be able to bring the little change that I think is necessary. Just like I said, I'm not looking to run 1 kilometer. I am not asking for anybody to run a mile. What I'm interested in, if each and every one of us can just run 1 centimeter, that's all. Do the best we can, just 1 centimeter. That's the change we're looking for.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stanley. We're looking for new leadership, a new face, and a redefinition of the political space in Africa. Africans want change, especially the African youth. But almost everybody admire to go and enjoy the benefits from other continents. Who should change Africa, if not the young people?
The young people are still the ones changing Africa. Look at the workforce. Except for some political offices, some high offices, you still have the youth who are the ones working in the economy. You do not have people who are above 65 who are the ones working, because that is the retirement age in Cameroon and in most African countries. So when you look at the situation, except for appointed positions, ministerial positions, and some elected positions that are being decided by political parties, the economy of Africa is still in the hands of the youth. They are still the drivers of the economy, which means no matter what we say, no matter the exodus we have observed, we still have the youth being the ones managing and running the economy. The major problem is that most parties and some laws in Africa, Cameroon in particular, prevent a lot of young people to go in for the post of president. And if you look at the case of Cameroon, where Elecam states that in its law, it is stated that you must be chosen by dignitaries, for you to be
to stand as an independent candidate.
It is a subtle way to marginalize the young people and people who can dare. Because if you look at the process, how rigorous it is with the system you have in place, to be practical. I take the case of the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, where we have close to 99.9% in the hands of the incumbent, the ruling party, the CPDM party. Now, how do you go to a place like the southwest region that equally has the UPC, the lone UPC senator in the southwest region, apart from the CPDM senators, who is from the UPC faction that support the sitting president and his party? You see how cumbersome it is. Now you start asking yourself questions. Which of these councillors would indeed give you their signature or chiefs when others are coming from the ruling party? So you realize that the marginalization in this sector is alarming, because you may want to be an independent candidate, a young man who is vibrant, has the support of the youth generally, but the law that permits you to have that political voice, it is lacking. Another thing is the amount. If you look at the amount put in place for you to be a candidate, as what they call a quotient amount, the amount is relatively so high in a country where you have people who want to lead the country with all good intention. Why make laws that will hinder a greater number of the people? So you realize that the marginalization is still there, and it is intentional. It is intentional, and this was actually put in place by the incumbent, because we all know that we have not had an opposition bill in the parliament that went through. We have not had an independent bill that went through in the parliament. So we have had all through for these 43 years of Mr. Biya's presidency, we have had laws that have been sent to the parliament to be deliberated upon, and with the advantage they have that the house is obese in terms of decision making, for the fact that out of the 180 they are dominating. So it becomes very impossible for you to have certain laws to go through. So this is where we say that no matter how we preach the democracy, but we know that there is an intention by the incumbent to prevent a certain set of people who could be chosen by the majority. And given that the parties in place are not also accommodable, and when I said this, I understand that Mr. Farr did not get it, but it was understood. What I mean is this: when parties would decide to incorporate more youth, or when youth would decide to come up with parties that will be predominantly youths, for a youth to be chosen, I want to be practical. I'll go by the current case submitted by a councillor of the CBDM party in Yaoundé, where he talks about the party not having its convention. And Mr. Farr talked about why not this party having its convention for the young people to come and make decision. The question is, where would you have the convention when the law of the party is highly marginalizing the young people? It states that it is the president of the party or the chairperson to call for that. So you see how cumbersome it becomes. But I think that if we will make laws that will be a plain field law, a law that will be, in a plain field, that everyone can contest, where you get to see my prowess, my political savvy, based on the fact that you are not using the tools given to you as an advantage point, then I think that, or take the case of the person who just announced his candidacy, it is very much possible that he is lost. However, I'll speak from the point of reality. For him to have the signatures of the category of people from the Southwest region within the current presidential or current political dispensation, it will be cumbersome. But I'll be happy to see how he's going to break it through. This is what we call laws made to sideline the youth. And it's on this note I'm saying that after this year, I cannot hide it, youth needs to come out. Parties that will not have opportunity for young people to decide who leads them, not being imposed by party hierarchy. I want to begin the campaign. Youth, you have every right to cross carpet until you find that party that accepts you. If the party cannot accept or put the laws, otherwise you will be presented as people who are lazy. I know that the system is in place has put gambling houses to derail you. They have put certain things to derail you. Drinking houses to derail you. They have close eyes on allegation on young people who are into scamming and internet fraud to derail you, so you can focus on these things and they do what they want to do. They will leave the system to have drugs to come in to derail you. And sometimes you look at these things and you think they are normal. No, it is institutionalized, and only when you open your eye, because at the end of the day, when you grow old, it will be difficult.
There's no law that says what you're saying. Is there a law that says?
No, when we say something is institutionalized, for example, we have received, as a human rights defender, I received a group of people who came from Kumba, and this is what they said, that they have met the administrative authorities in Kumba and they have complained, nothing was done. And it was on that note they decided, they bought a bus, 270-seater, and they had to come to Boya, where they said they were coming to the human rights office and they intend seeing the governor, because administrative authorities within Meme, they have not listened to them. So when we say it is institutionalized, we are looking at a subtle way that administrators undermine certain things. But technically, they know why.
You guys on this platform are clamoring for youths to be given greater opportunities to lead, to take up leadership positions in Africa. Practically speaking, what should the youths be doing, and what should the policy makers be thinking about to make sure that the youths are also given the pride of place?
The first thing that youths will have to do will be to get themselves engaged. We said something here. You don't sit and an old man comes and gives you power. It doesn't work like that. All these guys like that, they were daring. They took the bull by the horn. And I said here, youths, they have the majority of the population. Imagine that you come, students at the higher institute in Boya, those in Douala, only their numbers, University of Douala and all the like, decide to clamor behind the political party. There's no way that political party can get to the point in time when they're making the national ESCO, they are not inside. Because that's what decision makers are done. If you come to us, the CRM, what we call directoire, that's the directorate. In our directorate, you realize that we have 85% of the national ESCO members youth. Why is it 85%? Because a majority of the members of the party are youth. I mean, more than half of the militants of the CRM are youth as I speak now. And so you now discover that that particular number has influenced the putting in place of the National Executive Board. So it's the same thing here, as I said. If youth get committed, it will now mean that, I cue what Nji Lucas is saying, if they leave the gambling aside, they leave the issues of mimbo, drinking in disorder. The mimbo I saw people drinking in Kumba. I don't think I saw that. I saw that even in Bonabe. The mimbo I saw people drinking, I mean, just in Kumba. The nights that, all the nights that I spent outside on the street in Kumba, I asked myself, God forbid. And most of them were youths. Now, you can imagine the situation. And each time you are passing where they are getting those tickets in football, youths are the ones standing on the line. You start asking yourself, but where are we? And you see that the way they are discussing, hey, I missed the number, I missed the one, I missed the one, I missed the one. So you now realize that if youths leave these things and get into it, what does it mean? It means that youths should begin making research. That is a man that is Mr. Fongo there. He works on research. If he says he's coming in as a presidential candidate, he has done the research. If he says he wants to stand, probably he has the strategy he has put in place. There's nothing you will be telling him here that it might be cumbersome, it might be this and that, because before you declare intention, any serious presidential candidate must have gone through to understand that he or she is capable. Now, you look at it now that if you look at all of this, once youths they shun away from the other evil, the other, I call them vices, they're evil vices, and they begin to concentrate, it means that we'll move further. Another point, if the youths begin to be innovative, it means they will go out of the religious circle. Because religious circle itself, at the level of fanaticism, also destroys the youth. Yes, I say there is a church around my neighborhood. In the night they are there, in the morning they are there, and I ask myself, when do these people really go to work? I have not been able to understand when they go, but I just pray God to listen to them. But I think that in the real aspect of development, people should ask themselves per day, what have I done practically? I have a talent. I'm a journalist. Maybe I produce sports. I work on policy sports, or I work on documents. What have I done per day? Then coming out to give thanks to God will be another advantage. But now these are the things I've said that if it's at the level of fanaticism, which I think any normal man of God will not accept fanaticism, because I've seen men of God who tell you that no, you must be. That is, they do what they call empowerment of their Christians. They learn how to make soap, learn how to do this. They teach them business lessons so that they should be able to have what they call handwork before they come and shout, Holy Ghost fire, Holy Ghost fire. Those things must first of all be put in place. Now, if youths come out of this, because a handful of those youths, those that are frustrated are hanging somewhere with fanaticism in the religious sectors. Pentecostals incline, the other Protestants incline, and they are there every day running up and down. That one is another canker worm. We'll treat that one some other day. Why the others too are in the beer parlor and in the game houses doing their own magic. Others are on computers pressing whatever to conjure to make things happen in internet foster. That is another one. But then I think that if youths themselves, because if they are listening to us now, surprisingly, Mr. Elias, I'm talking to you now. I think I got a shout sometime at a distance before I came in here. I think a football match is going on. I don't know who's playing, but I think a football match. They are all queuing up there. What concerns that future here? They are not there. Now somebody is playing football there. That each match he's playing, he has about 1 million francs for the match he plays. And sometimes you are unable as a youth to make up that 1 million francs as money reserved for a whole year. But at the same time, you have been able to get a little bit of a casual job. The job has given you about 10,000 francs. You take out of 10,000 francs, you are putting 8,000 francs in the game of chance. To say, hey, I miss this number. Tomorrow you are going to hospital and put again. And that's why I tell people that all these companies of game of chances are not by error. They have a way of making the money. Just like those who raise money with Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, they are all business ventures. Nobody gives you money for free. And you think that you are so intelligent that you have been able to. So, at the end of it, if you leave all of this, Mr. Leo, and they come down to the platform of, let us see how we can define our future. Let's listen to what the TV stations are saying. Mr. Leo's program goes on every night. Let me really listen. They say, no, I'm going to register. Next, let me look for anywhere to belong. This is what it's not campaign on my part. You can be able to see media, you make it. Anywhere you belong, then you start discovering that you are not taking the decision. So by the time you are having that mental change mindset, the day they are calling you to come and take 5,000 francs or 2,000 francs, you take bread, you take sardine for matching. You ask yourself, but why should I do something that is right? And I'm collecting money. Am I being paid for it? So when you ask all of these questions, you yourself will be calling on those who are used to using you to do the dirty job to begin to refrain that, hey, these youth roster get sense now. They want to make a roster get sense now. We'll call them too much. We have had those things. It's fast becoming a common phenomenon that each time people want to make their motion of support, they take buses, put youths inside, plus students, fail them there, swell the whole area. At the end, all these youths have given their that is their unflinching support to the head of state. Who are the kangaroo politicians deceiving? When it's clean and clear that all is not well and we are at the crossroad. Yeah, when they take note, it is finished.
Okay.
It is finished with them.
Malcolm, practically speaking, how do we get the youths to take the lead?
Okay, I think that the youths need to understand what I'm going to say. First of all, the youths need to be fully engaged in economic activities, engaging themselves to be financially buoyant. Because he that has the money controls the society. So if the youths want to take over power, they must begin by taking over the economy. So youths need to get involved more in building financial power. The second thing that I would like to say is that I would like to borrow it from Mr. Lucas Nji. He talked about parties that have youth majority. The youths need to now come out and form parties, political parties. Now they are financially capable and they form their parties. It will go a long way for the youths to be in power. The third thing I would like to give as an advice is the fact that parents are listening to us. We say the youths now, they are shouting goal somewhere, but the parents are listening. As a parent, you are listening to this program. Know that you have a responsibility to also shape the destiny of your child. Not only sending the child to school, but also putting that child down, advising the child, showing the child which way to go in life. Education is not the only direction. But you put the child down and you advise that child, my child, I would like you to go into this. These things are possible. You can enter into politics and tomorrow you become this. You can do this, you can do that, you can do that. But most parents that are even listening to us now, like we are talking about youths want to, all they are thinking about is going out of the country. The parents are to be held responsible for this. The parents too are pushing the youths out. They prefer that their children should go out. Me be say my pikin today out. That's the mentality. So the parents too, they have a lot to do. We cannot begin to fix the society if the foundation of the society itself is bad. Marriage is the foundation of society. So it has something to do there. The parents need to get up. The last time I was here, I say parents, you have noticed that there are some universities that children go there and they come out, they don't have jobs, they don't have anything doing. Change now. Don't send your children there. After advanced level, think how to empower them. Let them do something that will empower them financially. So I believe that if these three mechanisms are put in place, because these are things that concern you as a person, somebody is not coming to put it on you, you are not expecting it from somebody, then I believe in the next coming election, which I am seeing many more youths as presidential candidates, it will shock this nation that the youths are going to do more than what they are trying to do now.
Okay, Mr. Stanley, do you have the feeling that it is a time for a new generation of leadership in Africa?
Absolutely. I think the time has come for us to have the leadership on the continent that is absolutely well structured to be able to face the challenges that we have in the 21st century. If you look at where we are, the vantage point that we have, the growing young population that on the continent of Africa, we are nothing else, but an envy to the world. Africa, for that matter, we are basically sitting on all the most productive land that is good for agriculture. All the world's 60% of the world arable land is actually on this continent. And so we have what it takes, in the agricultural sector. We have what it takes in the mining sector. We have what it takes, in almost all sectors to be able to emerge and become the best that we can be. I look at the country like India. If you look at India, India basically went through the colonial era too. But if you look at India today, they are doing very well so far as medicine is concerned, pharmaceuticals, and also they are doing very well in terms of building a very robust tech system in India, which rivals most of the things you see in America. If you look at companies like Google, you look at companies like Apple, Tesla, most of the software engineers in those companies, have their heritage from India. They're Indians. And I think that we can be able to do same so far as the continent of Africa is concerned, and why not Cameroon? Just for example, if you look at Manila, in the Philippines, there are more than 1,500 Cameroonians that are currently living in the Philippines. And the only reason why they're there is because they speak French. And so they work in call centers, picking up tech calls from Canada and France. And so we can be able to do same in Cameroon without having young Cameroonians travel out of Cameroon, just so that they can be able to gain employment. Meanwhile, we have the best of the best in Cameroon, and we can be able to build the same structures that is, taking them out into the Philippines. We can have those same structures in Cameroon. I am optimistic. I am hopeful. I believe sincerely, in the young Cameroonian. I believe that the energy is there, the mind for change is there, the ambition and the will is there, and what is missing is leadership. And I think that I have what it takes to be able to present that kind of leadership that is well calculated, not the type of leadership that is based upon what's bad, but the type of leadership that is based upon what can be.
When we get out there to Europe, we're talking about the European Union. They have a common market. The United States of America itself is a very huge market. We have Russia, China. Do you think we are also where we are because to some extent we are very divided and not taking full advantage of the huge market that market and human resource that we have back here in Africa?
Our geography has been our biggest problem. If you look at America, for example, the Mississippi cut across the country, and all towns across the Mississippi, that every state that the Mississippi goes through, there are huge markets along that path. And so we are in Africa, on the continent that is a very hard to navigate place. If you look at the city, what we call the El Dorado in the Sahara, one of the most remote, most beautiful place that in so much memory to me is a place called Timbuktu. Timbuktu is actually sitting right on the Nile, right on the Niger. And so, and all that Timbuktu is known for is an exchange point history for ivory coming in from the south, salt coming in from the north with the caravans coming in from the desert, and also gold, and obviously slaves, back then. So we have to be able to understand our geography, understand terrain, understand the difficulty that we face, and that is why we need to be able to have a Trans-Sahara railway line that basically cuts from east to west, and also have one that cuts from north to south, so that we can crisscross the continent with railway tracks that will be able to help transport goods from one country to another. Because we are that limited, can you imagine that we have more trading volume per African countries with the West and with the East than we do with each other on the continent of Africa? That in itself is not helpful. We have to be able to make sure that we open up our borders on the continent of Africa so far as trade is concerned. We need to basically do away with tariffs, custom duties for goods that are of African origin. If somebody is manufacturing something in Nigeria, they have to sell it in Cameroon tax-free, all right, no custom duty. Likewise, somebody manufacturing something in Cameroon, let them also be able to sell it in the Nigerian market. That is how we grow and improve on small to medium-sized enterprises on the continent. That basically enhances the market. And without any growth in the market, forget about having foreign direct investors that are coming in, especially once we are looking for funding. We are talking about young entrepreneurs not having funding, small to medium enterprises on the continent of Africa not having funding. The problem is because the market in itself is relatively quite small. There is no way any other investors will look at the continent telling them, saying, I put my money in this place, I will be able to get the return. So we need to be able to expand the market and then beef up our production and encourage young Africans to consume what's African, not what's European or American or from the West as a whole.
Okay, we ending the program with you, Lucas. Certainly, one last word to the young people watching us tonight.
It's as simple as it is. My last word is an observation that I made, and Rehabet is still working on it. I could speak now hypothetically that the other challenge is we have the issue of gender, which is highly underrepresented in most parties. And if we can have youth who want to come out massively, I'm talking about the female. If we go by our normal quarter meetings that we have, or take the case of when you want to elect a class leader or a course delegate in the case of the university, you observe that once a girl is chosen, almost all the class can vote for that girl. But most of our parties do not give the opportunity for young girls to take the advantage. So what the youth needs to do is they have to start building. They have to start building themselves and ensuring that if you build a party, put the girls also at the center. Politics is about number. And imagine that you live in an area where a boy is I think it's about 5 girls is to 1 or 4 is to 1. So imagine that you have more female in your party and you send them out there as candidates, be it for municipal, legislative, regional council elections, parliamentary elections, or so to say, you would see its result. So I think that it is time for the young people, especially the girls. They go through a lot. Most of you are out there, you are sex workers, not because you wanted it. It is because of the difficulty, the poor economy that we find ourselves, and it has caused you to go out there for survival sex. So I want to say this to you, please. Take the time out, register for election, start planning for legislative and municipal elections in 2026 by voting this year. Now you will get that result. Parties that will incorporate more voices of women and guide them through, I bet you are going to see the difference as concerning the political landscape. So don't mind about the differences that we have and the poor political landscape that we presently have. We are building on it. We have identified, and that is why we are saying that when you come out in your large number, it is difficult for someone to indeed rig that process. So ensure that you register and also come out and vote. And when you vote, police that vote. To police your vote basically means that you're going to stay there until when it is counted. And the person that is representing the party that you have chosen, ensure that that person is not corrupt. No one is going to come there and tip them so they can change the process, the decision or the collation process when it's about time to collate the different results from the different police station. Ensure that that person who is representing your party does not go closer to the other person. On that day of elections, they are all aliens. No one is supposed to know the other. They work there, they have to work as robots. So this is what it means for you to police the system, because you could vote and you go home and that person does not have dignity. He or she can be compromised. The last is, please endeavor to be volunteers. We are talking about close to 40,000 police stations that we are likely to have for this year presidential elections. It suffices that you should think about being a volunteer. It is not in everything that you must be paid. Remember, we are talking about the democracy where you are the electorate and you are the boss. So what is most important is that you have to ensure that you take part in volunteerism. Volunteer. It is a reason why in Cameroon in 2021, there was a law that was made in this country for volunteerism. So be part of it. Of course, it is going to increase your CV. It's going to add more into your CV. And it will help you a long way as concerning leadership in Africa and Cameroon in particular.
Okay. Good evening, sir. Spencer Ngeng is writing from Limbe. Excuse me. What I got to contribute in today's talk is that the youth are reluctant graduating, and instead of getting a job, with certificates, they got all to no avail. So that's why some don't even have that zeal to go further into the university. They rather engage in anything that figured out in order to stay optimistic about life. All this due to bad foundation. The government is not providing jobs for those that got the requirement majority. Youth deviate negative with life expectations, leading to high rate of theft, prostitution, etc., which is very appalling. Okay, good evening, Mr. Liu. No, I'll not read that one. Good evening to you, Mr. Liu, and all in the studio. The future of Cameroonians lies on the soldiers of politicians. Churches have nothing to do with the change of Cameroon because they keep telling people to pray. The 21st century is a new age of information and communication technology, and I believe if youth are given the opportunity to exhibit their skills, Cameroon and Africa at large will develop very drastically, economically, socially, politically, and likewise in every sector. The champion in both skilled labor and unskilled. Look at the case of the youth president of Burkina Faso, Ivory Coast, Chad. These nations are growing rapidly. Good evening to all the gurus in the studio. What Mr. Lucas is saying is perfectly in place as far as the youth in politics is concerned in the new phase of leadership in Africa. What is obvious with politics is that even if opposition political parties fail, they keep singing one and the same song, especially those who are preparing to assume political positions. Will not encourage the youths and register massively, does not make voters and not vote massively for the leading party, especially when the new political parties is incompetent with the same old people the youths are fighting against. Okay, we're going to be ending here. Thank you for coming, for Elvis Tayon.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. While calling on all the youths to make sure they should partake, they should not be passive during this period of political change in Cameroon. Let them take their role, take the bull by the horn, go and register massively. Greetings to you, Innocent, out there in Kumba, and also to Sir Nyambo Divine, and a host of all others who are listening to us out there with Mr. John, the Mewanos, the Mewano. All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for coming, Evangelist.
Thank you very much. It was an interesting program. My last message to the youth will be that David showcased his talents, and because of that, Saul, who was an older generation, wanted to kill him. But he learned to survive, and at the end of the day, he became king of Israel. So no matter what the older generations are doing, to the youth don't give up. Keep on pressing on, and eventually the leadership of this nation and in Africa is going to be in the hands of the youth. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Nji, thank you for coming.
It's a pleasure, Mr. Kum, being here tonight. It has been wonderful. I think you're doing a great job. My prayer and wish is that the young people should not drop their courage. They should not let that enthusiastic person in them die off. No matter what, political apathy has never been the solution. Only through policies that we can make the country great.
We also are very grateful to you, Mr. Stanley Fungot.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you for giving me the platform to be able to announce my candidacy. I'm really greatly appreciative of that. And that being said, I think I'm inviting everybody to join me as I put my best foot forward. This has to be all of us, especially the young people, the Bensikiners, those who are mining sand, everyone who has been marginalized or who feel that the end has come. I think that we're just about to see the beginning of something truly fantastic. I'm quite optimistic. I can't wait to see what the future holds.
Mr. Stanley, you just made an announcement this night on My Media Prime TV. Prime to be precise, we want to give you that opportunity to once again tell Cameroonians what you announced earlier.
Right. So I am announcing that I'm entering the race for the presidency of the Republic of Cameroon, and I'm setting up every single thing that I need to make sure that we are able to do the right documentations that we've been asking. We have looked through it, and we think that there's a clear path for us. So I'm quite optimistic about this. The way this is not about me running because I'm trying to be able to make a name for myself. This is because I think that this time has come for me to be able to inspire young people on the continent and inspire young people in Cameroon, so that all of us together we can be able to build the country that we want. We are not looking at the past, we are looking at the future. So my platform is all about, it's quite policy driven. And that being said, we have this form which is called Cameroon Rebooth. Cameroon Rebooth. You can go to cameroonrebooth.org, Cameroon Rebooth. And what we are doing is we're a policy firm, and we are putting out policies that I believe will be able to enhance and build the country that we're looking for. For us to be able to solve any problem, we must first of all understand the problem that we're trying to solve, and then find ways in which we can bring meaningful solutions, not just solutions because we're trying to make people happy, but solutions that will be for the benefit of all Cameroonians. I was born in Cameroon. I believe in Cameroon. I'm optimistic about Cameroon, and I hope that you too can follow me so that we become the change the country needs.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stanley, and to all of you who took time off to watch tonight's edition of Prime on My Media Prime TV. I'm sure we're going to be coming back to Mr. Stanley to tell Cameroonians better what the Reboot platform is all about. Thank you to Desmond and Eli for production. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.